Let's talk about the JM press, what it is, the pros and cons, and whether or not you should include it in your program. So the first thing I'll say is that this exercise was created by the one and only J.M. Blakely, often considered to be the black sheep of the Westside Barbell Club. And what he essentially invented was a skull crusher and close grip bench hybrid. To simplify it, you bring your forearm to your bicep without tipping that shoulder. Once it halts, press back up. That's all there is to it.
I let it come down as far as it will come and then press out from that point, getting a full stretch on the tricep tendon.
You're maximally stressing the tricep tendon. The movement pattern is very specific in raising the raw bench. And of course, you'll build massive triceps at the same time. You can also go really heavy on this exercise, so please be careful. More on that later. Anyway, right now you might be thinking, that's a pretty cool new concept. But really, this exercise has been around for decades. It's been proven to be effective at getting you big and strong. The reputation speaks for itself, and since its creation, there have been hundreds of powerlifters who acquired elite bench presses while using the JM press as an important accessory lift. So I want you to know that this isn't some gimmick. It's not some flashy little exercise. In fact, I have a strong feeling that not many people will be interested in this video because of that exact reason. But for those who are willing to give it a shot, the benefits are very real. And now I want to talk about the form aspect a little bit more. Know that the way that J.M. Blakely instructed it is the original proper way, but is very difficult to standardize for one major reason. He has massive arms. Basically, he says you want to bring your forearm to your bicep, but the more mass you have, the less range of motion there is. So you'll end up doing too much range of motion to the point where you might end up doing this little weird rollback movement and you might get a little bit of stress right in your forearm area. Plus it becomes hard to overload. So at that point, you might just be better off doing a standard extension since the range of motion won't be that much different as well as the weights being used. So that's the only limitation. Everyone does it differently, and depending on your current size, it's gonna have a massive impact. So there's two other ways that would probably make a little bit more sense to you. One is the Dave Tate method, which simplifies the entire JM press. Simply do a close grip bench while having your hands be further back, like in a skull crusher. Don't let the shoulder come down. In this way, the form 100% accounts for your anthropometry. We're not basing it off the little arm movement, these two areas getting closer to each other. It simply becomes related to your arm length, like a floor press. If you have shorter arms, you're gonna get closer to your chest. If you don't, it'll be a little bit higher, but that doesn't matter. All we're trying to do is take out the shoulder as much as possible while having that forearm be more backwards. I think that's a very simple way to do it, and the benefits are still going to be there. Otherwise, if you don't like the way this feels on your triceps, you can always do the Matt Wenning way, which combines both into one. You bring the bar halfway to your chest and then tilt it all the way back to your forehead, extend back up. That's a pretty smart way of doing it because it ensures we're getting the isolation effect while refraining from going too heavy. Because some guys will have a tendency of just doing a partial close grip bench. And even though you're still tilting that arm back, getting some additional stress on the tricep tendon, there is a tendency to ego lift, cheat, and do this weird rollback movement where momentum helps you get the weight from point A to B. So the Wenning approach is a lot more strict, still easy on your elbows, and standardizes the form a little bit better compared to the two other ways. So I'd recommend you try out all three, see what works for you. But no matter what you do, know that every individual performs a JM press differently. So there is no right and wrong way per se. As long as you feel the triceps, you're not getting snapped up, and the carryover seems to be high, then there shouldn't be anything to worry about. Now with that in mind, I touched briefly upon elbow pain and how when you combine a skull crusher and close grip bench into one, this definitely minimizes the stress over here compared to a skull crusher where it's pure extension. Some guys can't even do that. This is a great advantage of JM pressing, but should still be aware that you're stressing the tricep tendon quite a bit, and that can absolutely lead to injuries if you rush the weights too quickly. So what I'm going to tell you right now is something that you're going to be really happy for, because if you don't listen to this advice, the chances of entering Snap City greatly increase, to the point where you're going to come back this video 3 to 6 months later, make 5 sock accounts, and leave a ton of dislikes and negative comments, because you'll think that jam pressing is dangerous when in fact it was 100% ego lifting and jumping into weights that your tendons were unable to currently handle. So with that warning out of the way, let's talk about what you should do. Starting off, I don't care how strong you are. You can be an advanced bencher going in the 300s. Whatever you can do right now for 3 sets of 10 on your first attempt, do 50% of it. Yeah, you heard me right. I don't care that it's easy. You're going to learn how to do the movement correctly. This way we get the desired tricep effect without bastardizing the form and building the correct resilience, which takes a little bit of time to do. Not that long. You can linear progress workout to workout. So if you're doing 100 pounds, now you're stripping it to 50. Each session can add 2.5 to 5 pounds. But you're not getting any stronger. You're simply refining the movement. So when you get back to the weight that you were already able to handle, you'll instantly notice better recovery. And once the overloading process begins, you'll do the exercise as intended. Not just doing some weird partial press, which is all too common. So my absolute biggest tip for this video is to start light. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of backtracking later down the road. All right, those are the fundamentals. For programming, do this exercise 1 to 2 times a week. Though I usually don't go more than 1 because I don't feel you have to. Reps can be on the lower or higher side. Doesn't really matter. So you can do 5 sets of 5 or even 3 sets of 12, 15. Either way, you're going to get carryover with the size to show for it. And with that said, I got nothing more to say regarding the benefits. Now I want to cover the, not cons, but topic of whether or not you should actually do the exercise, give you an unbiased perspective. So I'll first say that this exercise isn't mandatory. You can still get an elite bench without it. And if you did tricep extensions at the very end of your program, so right after your presses, you're still going to get most of the tricep isolation effects in a way that does raise the raw bench. That means taking your barbell extension from 65 pounds to 95 is absolutely going to be beneficial. And if you're doing that, heck, even taking it beyond that point to say 135 pounds, you can't tell me you'd need jam presses at that point, because that is a serious weight to be extending. And you're still stressing that tricep tendon quite a bit. So as long as you can do the exercise safely, the effectiveness is always going to be there. Plus, there are variations to minimize overuse while being really brutal, like the extension with chains. So if you're mixing in many different styles of extensions, that lowers the injury rates right off the bat. Yet we're still getting really strong in all the correct joint angles that improve a bench press. So I'd make a strong case that emphasizing extensions is probably more than enough for most of you. And that's just me keeping it real. Yeah, we can say that JM presses are awesome. That's not untrue. But to say that you need to do it when there's other exercises that get a similar job done, like, we got to be honest about what is and isn't bullshit. And if I want to take this argument to the extreme, I can say that dropping extensions completely and doing tricep pushdowns is still going to be beneficial, because the reason we isolate our triceps is not necessarily to give us a one-to-one carryover effect. That could, of course, be a massive benefit, and that's what the jam presses seek to accomplish. But what we can also do is simply improve the size of the muscle in order to raise our strength potential. Therefore, the carryover aspect is completely irrelevant, even though at first glance you would think that's the objective. So if I have 16-inch arms and I get them to 17 in a faster amount of time by isolating them with pushdowns, and I take my regular pushdown from 50 pounds for 3x10 to 100 pounds, yet it doesn't really help my barbell extension as much, doesn't feed into it to the degree that I'd like. but I still gain a good amount of size. That by itself, independent of everything else regarding optimal strength training programming, is in the long run 100% going to help your raw bench just off the muscle size itself, because a bigger muscle has more strength potential. That's what you need to understand about maximizing your performance. Finally, we have to understand the simple fact that just because something is a hybrid lift doesn't mean that doing it alone is better than selecting independent exercises that have their own function of that combination. So if I max out on a regular bench and then I do back off work with the close grip bench and extension right after, well, didn't those two exercises give me the supposed benefits of a jam press? And if it didn't, what about doing another press? Something that overloads the top a little bit more, like a board press, or better yet, doing any press with accommodating resistance. So if I do a board press with chains plus a tricep isolation exercise of any type, what need is there for me to do a jam press? You don't have to. That is being objective. So I just want you to be aware of that. Just because I like the exercise, as well as many elite benchers who can do 500-600 pounds, doesn't mean you have to copy them, and that skipping out on this movement would hurt you long term. It's just another tool in the toolbox. A great one, but certainly not mandatory. And with that said, I'm done talking. Hope you guys enjoyed this segment. Give me your feedback on the exercise. What has your experience been? And I'll see you all in the next segment.